Hello, I'm NP. If you happen to have a YouTube channel, then you must probably know that some videos can take an extremely long time to make. Sometimes it's a pain to collect enough material. The other time, the flow is just not good enough, so it ends up as some sort of editing hell. And sometimes you have to wait for someone else for weeks, months, maybe. But there is a special pocket of hell reserved for the king of time-consuming videos. Testing. Sometimes even a simple A-B test can be a pain. If you add more and more test subjects, then you can see an exponential growth of time needed. So nearly 60 cars took quite a while. It happened last summer in 2023. I think it took a little bit longer than 1 month. Of course, not the actual runs, but finding the time and energy while you run your everyday life. And finally, when the results were there, still it's a lot of dry statistic data. How can it be put in some framework where it makes sense? So after approximately 9 months, this actual test video is version 3.6, I guess. And maybe it still doesn't make sense. I don't know. You tell me. Okay, so the following DiRT Rally 2.0 test includes all cars from all categories that you can race on a normal rally. So no rallycross cars are included. I wanted to see the difference between cars and not between settings, so these are all default. The test happened in various environments with different grip conditions. It's an ample of data, so I decided that I will divide it into parts. So this is part 1 with the maximum grip conditions on a dry stage called Subida por Carretera in Spain. A couple of words about why I thought that I will be capable of doing some testing, despite the fact that I started sim racing only after the age of 45, with no racing background. So, somewhere since the early 90s, I've been a performing musician, repeating the same things over and over again, show by show, and 3 decades on the road can build quite a focus. So despite the fact that I started it very late and I was never quick, still I was sort of steady. And what do you really need to complete a race? Well, reach the finish line in one piece. So despite the fact that I was never able to run, record times, in hardcore club championship, including esports guys, I could still hold the line. Not bragging whatsoever, I'm not quick, I can just run steady lap times. Well, perhaps making the same mistakes over and over again. But it's useful for testing. So finally, before the results, a couple of words about why did I start this test at all. Well, last summer, waiting for EA Sports WRC, I realized that despite the fact that I played it for hundreds of hours, still I have cars in DiRT Rally 2.0 that I haven't even driven. In club competitions, I tended to stick to the same cars, and some of these decisions were based on, hype. For example, when I was a kid, every guy had a Samantha Fox poster on their wall. Well, not as if I had anything against some talent, but what did I want to put on my wall? Well, a guitar hang and a poster of a Lancia Delta S4. So this Group B beast was a no-brainer for me in DiRT Rally 2. But actually, was it the best choice? Well, I don't know, because I haven't tested it against, for example, the MG Metro. And there are a lot of cars like this. Also, I always wondered about some questions. How fast Group B rally cars actually are? Was the succeeding Group A really slower than Group B? Do the more advanced drive and suspension system mean faster times, even with less powerful engines of modern rally cars? How much speed and handling difference 4-wheel drive added compared to 2-wheel drive? And so on and so forth. Hopefully I can find my answers after this test. Number 57. Citroën DS21. Well, it wasn't a surprise to me because despite the fact that this car is fun to drive, still it looks like a boat and also handles like one, floating from corner to corner. It's not a problem, it's fun to drive, but if you want to go fast, this is not the car for you. It's funny to see how quicker number 56 is. That is Lancia Fulvia HF. 13 seconds, a lot on a 3 minutes long stage. And also right here is the first big surprise to me. I always raced the Fulvia in the Age 1 group. Still, even for the first run, at least on tarmac, number 55 was Mini Cooper S and it was quicker. I was surprised because it was not familiar like the Fulvia that I drove all the time in this game. Still, it was more agile when turning, and it shows on the stage time. Apart from this, Group Age 1 being the last 3, it's not a big surprise because these old school cars are underpowered and don't handle too well. But then number 54 was a very big surprise to me. Ford Escort Mark II. It's sort of shocking to see this car around the bottom of H2 group. You know, because of Ari Vatanen, the Ford Escort was always my choice. I very rarely drove the other cars in this group. So despite the fact that the Escort handles like a dream and fits like a glove, it is the slowest? Wow. Still being 7 seconds faster than the best car from the 60s, I think it's quite remarkable. Okay, number 53. Alpine Renault A10 1600S. I really don't know where this car made this massive difference of 3 seconds, because it felt to be a little bit less powerful than the Ford Escort, but also felt lighter when cornering and braking, a little bit less nervous than the Ford. Let's go on. Number 52. Volkswagen Golf GTI 16V. This front-wheel drive car from the 80s handles very well, as it's very light. Despite having better suspension and brakes, it feels underpowered even compared to 70s rally cars. So it's nice, but not enough. Number 51. Ford Sierra Cosworth RS500. Well, the first big shock of this test, to me. It's pretty slow for a post-Group B rally car. Okay, this one was a stopgap solution before Ford could develop something that is competitive in the 4x4 league, consisting of Lancia Delta, Toyota Celica, Subaru Impreza and the like. Ford burned an ample of money on developing the Group B RS200, and after banning Group B, it was left without a capable race car. Still, the Sierra was a quite capable car in the reality, and I'm surprised that it wasn't quicker in this game. Number 50. Peugeot 205 GTI. No big surprise here, because these cars from the early 80s, they were sort of underpowered. Still, they have a very nice character. So, despite being slow, they are much more fun, for me at least, to drive than present-day Group R2 cars. Number 49. Fiat 131 Abarth Rally. I was sort of surprised that I wasn't quicker with it, as it has some amazing handling, much less nervous than the Ford Escort. But then, still, it wasn't the fastest Group H2 rally car. Number 48. Datsun 240Z. This respectable rally car was super competitive in very demanding African races. But these were rather about reliability than speed, so it's no surprise that it didn't end up around the front of its class. Come on, voice. Number 47. Peugeot 208 R2. Well, the first entry of, in my opinion, the most boring class in this game. These front-wheel drive cars have modern suspension, so they are stable and predictable. Maybe too predictable, I don't know, but when it's not necessary, I don't drive them. Number 46. Opel Ascona 400. Walter Röhrl won his last championship in this car. Also, this Opel is the last championship-winning rear-wheel-driven car. It was 1982, then the Audi Quattro came and everything changed about rally forever. Maybe I couldn't run the fastest time of its group, H3. But it was the best balanced car in this class. So if you want to reach the finish line, maybe it's a very good car to choose. Number 45. BMW E30 M3 Turbo. As one of my Finnish friends say, well, I believed that this car will be faster. It felt a little bit better accelerating and braking than the Opel Ascona, but in the corners it felt to be a little bit heavy. But maybe it's just me. I prefer lighter, more agile cars. Dancing a lot. This car to me was like a more powerful version of the Datsun 240Z. Not bad, but not the best. Number 44. Opel Kadett C GTE. Man, this car is insane. It's a pity that I've never used it. On the timetable, it seems to bite the ass of much higher class cars. Also, it was 10 seconds faster than my most used and favorite Ford Escort Mark II in the same H2 class. Well, before I had no idea that this car is so much more predictable and powerful than the rest. So, absolute standing ovation from me. This car is amazing. Number 43. Ford Fiesta R2. Well, still my least favorite class, and it was the only car that I used in R2. So the handling and everything was so familiar. I mean, how the hell it happened that it was only the second on the timetable among R2 cars? It's a very nice car, anyway, I just fall asleep when driving it. Number 42. Opel Adam R2. Well, it shouldn't have happened. I dislike this car so much. It is some sort of watered-down version of Fiat 500. A couple of times I had to drive this car in real life and it was so boring. And I cannot forget this experience when it comes to this game. So how the hell it happened to be the fastest R2 car? I have no idea. I pushed all cars as hard as I could. So I don't know, maybe for tarmac stages this car is the best. Saying this feels so bad. But it is true, you can see the timetable. Number 41. Lancia Stratos. I'm a huge Lancia Sports fan, so I used this car only in the H3 class. It's very agile, maybe it can be a little nervous on a loose surface, but otherwise it's my second most favorite rear-wheel driven car. Number 40. Ford Mustang GT. Well, taking an already existing group of track racing cars and turn them into a rally car is a good idea, right? Nope. At least not in my opinion. So if it happens to be your favorite car class in DiRT Rally 2.0, please don't take it seriously, it's just my own subjective view. The power is there, but they feel too heavy to me. Not fun to drive. So most probably Rally GT is the least played class for me. So the first car from that group on this list, oh well, so what? Next. Number 39. Renault 5 Turbo. When I was a kid, I loved the look of this car so much. This yellow, black, white livery is one of the best visual designs ever, I think. Still, I didn't drive this car in DiRT Rally 2.0 too much. Because of a practical reason, it is way too nervous for me. Despite the fact that mid-engine layout provides a very stable, balanced car and optimal weight distribution, still you have a ridiculously overpowered engine with a massive turbo lag, driving the rear wheels only. So it's very easy to lose the rear end, especially on anything else than tarmac. If only it was a four-wheel driven race car. But it's not. Anyway, thanks to its amazing engine, it could still snatch the top time of its class. 38. Opel Menta 400. This is the first car in the list from the mighty Group B. In short, that means some insanely cutting-edge, amazing engines, coupled with weak suspension and brakes. If it wasn't deadly enough, passengers were very poorly protected against collisions. So these were deadly by all means. So all the drivers were racing with these beasts and survived or even managed to win is an extreme achievement. Anyway, in sim racing you don't have to worry about your safety. You can sit back and enjoy the extreme power of these engines. The Opel Manta is one of the nicest handling cars among all of them. Only the rear wheels are driven, so it's a little bit nervous, but not as much as all the other cars with the similar layouts in this group. 37. Porsche 911 SCRS. A Porsche is a quite unique car. The engine is placed behind the rear wheel, so the rear end is heavy. The front of the car is very light, where all the steering happens, and the rear wheels are driven by the engine. No other performance car has a similar layout. You know why? Well, because it's a bad idea. Throughout the years, Porsche could fix this problem of a very light front, very heavy end by clever engineering. Still, when it comes to rally, the balance feels very strange, at least to me. So I'm quite surprised that I could run a faster time than with the Opel Manta, but it is what it is. This car is fast, if you feel it, that I admit I don't. 36. Porsche 911 RGT Rally Spec. Well, what a coincidence seeing these two cars side by side. I could copy-paste the same thing that I said about the 911 RSR. Of course, it has a much more advanced suspension, but still it feels strange to me. But I can remember of an Assetto Corsa Competizione championship where people used the term "oh, it's a Porsche guy" a lot, where some guys had an extremely good feel for the balance. So I'm definitely not a Porsche guy. Still, for some reason, I don't know, I used this Porsche 911 in Rally GT events only. I suspected that I will be the fastest with this car in this group, but as far as it seems, I'm not. 35. Chevrolet Camaro GT4R. I cannot tell too much about this car. To me it felt a little bit lighter than the Mustang with a similar layout, but it's still not my favorite class and still not my favorite car. 34. BMW M1 Procar Rally. Hands down, it's one of the nicest rear-wheel driven cars in the game. I would say if you prefer sheer power, you will prefer it to the Lancia 037. That's much more nervous and also much more agile in the corner. Well, at least me, I could draw a little bit smoother lines with the BMW. It feels a little bit more stable. 33. Lancia 037 Evo 2. Well, this is my most favorite and most used Group B rear-wheel driven car, so I suspected that it will top its group. What I didn't suspect is that the Lancia and the BMW will be so close, just some 100 milliseconds away from each other. So this Lancia is unstable by design, so the rotation of this car is extreme. Coupled with its insane engine, I think it's the most agile car in this game. Still, it's sort of difficult to set it right, because it's very nervous. But once you tame it, then it will be an amazing driving experience. 32. BMW M2 Competition. Well, I have to admit, even if I don't like the Rally GT class, this one was fun to drive. In my opinion, it's the most responsive car in its class, and it could beat a Group B rally car. It's quite respectable. I'm sort of surprised that I didn't run the best time with its class. 31. Aston Martin Vantage GT4. Well, it's pretty fast for a James Bond car, isn't it? I'm surprised about this time beating the BMW M2. You know, first I made all of these runs one after another, and I started to compare the times only later. So honestly, I didn't feel to be too quick with the Aston Martin. It felt to be heavier than the BMW, and apart from the majestic sound of the engine, I didn't feel that I am actually going fast. Still, it could produce the fastest time of its class. I don't know, maybe it's the acceleration. So I'm surprised. This car is respectable. 30. Subaru WRX STI NR4. I think it's Group N in my country. So it's a modded, very powerful street car basically, with a roll cage and necessary modifications for rallying. The Subaru on the timetable means this is the first four-wheel driven car, so even if NR4 class is the closest thing to an ordinary car, Still, on the timetable, it could beat all the two-wheel-driven legends, so it's strange to see of how much difference a four-wheel drive means. 29. Seat Ibiza kit car. Well, it's a beginning of a new class as well, F2. These cars were used around the 90s. They had naturally aspirated 1.6 and 2-liter engines, front-wheel drive, some extreme handling on tarmac, not so extreme on anything else, and extreme running costs. On tarmac races, this beast could beat the ass of much higher class rally cars. In the hands of people like Gilles Panizzi or Sebastian Loeb, well, no surprise I couldn't beat the asses of higher class cars. Still, I have a soft spot for F2. In my opinion, they are the most enjoyable front-wheel drive rally cars. They are ridiculously powerful and the handling is amazing. My favorite is perhaps the Peugeot 306 for no particular reason, because the handling of these cars, at least in DiRT 2.0, is almost identical. 28. Subaru Legacy RS. Again, it's the first car from a new group, Group A, that in rally became the successor of the famous Group B, that became banned in 1986 because of a series of very nasty accidents. So, despite the fact that a leash was put on these cars considering engine power, still brakes and suspension developed so much that soon these cars surpassed Group B considering stage times. Well, at least in the reality. In my hands, in this test, that's a whole different sort of question. It's yet to be seen. Anyway, the Subaru is from the early 90s. I can say two things about it. It's fun to drive, and I was never quick with it. So it's one of the most predictable results on this test for me. 27. Ford RS 200, Group B. Wow, I was pretty surprised when I checked the timesheet. On the stage, the sense of speed driving this car was off the chart. After the run, I believed it will be a top 3 time in Group B. Well, it's not. Actually, it is the slowest stage time in Group B, 4-wheel drive. Well, even if in my hands with default setup it couldn't run the best time, still it can bring home the best looking Group B car badge, in my opinion. Most of the rest look like bricks from Tetris. It's not a problem, I love these cars, but they look like blocks, basically. 26. Volkswagen Golf kit car. Well, another F2 race machine. As I have mentioned, these are very closely matched, almost identical, and the stage times reflect that. So it's a tarmac specialized machine, front-wheel drive and a lot of horsepower. My favorite front-wheel drive class, even if these cars are a little bit lacking on gravel and snow. 25. Peugeot 306 Maxi. So the proof of what I've said, there's just 400 milliseconds between this car and the previous one in the same class, and it's just 1 second faster than the Seat Ibiza. This Peugeot ran the fastest time in its class, and it's my most favorite F2 car, but surely not because of a different handling. I don't know, maybe it's because Gilles Panizzi, who was a famous tarmac specialist back in time, running this car. 24. MG Metro. Well, another Group B car quite low on this list. It's interesting but not surprising, because I didn't drive this car too much. If F2 was the class of very closely matched cars, well, Group B is just the polar opposite. All of the cars here feel and handle quite differently. So, for example, this little Metro has the shortest wheelbase among all of them. It means in the corner it's very agile. So on a twisty stage it can be your best friend. But high-speed straight line it can be quite nervous. Well, at least it has a naturally aspirated engine, so there is no turbo lag. But make no mistake, a V6 engine mounted behind your seat is completely crazy. So these guys back in time racing these cars are completely mind-blowing. 23. Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 10. Another fantastic car from the group NR4. I'm not surprised that I ran a better time than with the Subaru because I always raced this car. I'm not sure if it's better than the Subaru, I just use it more, so its behavior is more familiar. Anyway, if you just start rallying and wish to discover full-wheel drive, I mean handling and mechanics, I would recommend to start with these two cars. Despite that they pack quite a punch, still they are not overpowered. Their handling is quite smooth and predictable, regardless of the surface. 22. Ford Escort RS Cosworth. This car arrived around the end of Group A era. Carlos Sainz almost won the championship with it in the 1998 season. His main rival that year, Tommy McKinnon, did not finish the race, and Carlos Sainz was in an awesome form, absolutely killing the race. And then, well, you know what? Check this on YouTube, it's an amazing story. So, what about this car? Well, it's the only one with a 7-speed transmission. And it will sound stupid, but it absolutely confused me. You know, considering pace notes, I follow a pretty old-school approach. Pace notes divide the turns into 6 levels, and I try to match the actual gear to the actual pace note. For example, left 2 means I can safely enter and exit a corner level 2 in 2nd gear, even if I floor it. So a 6-speed transmission is ideal. 5-speed, great. 4-speed, great. 7-speed, I'm lost. Maybe just me, and with a lot of practice, I think it would work, but you know, this Cozy is not my most favorite Group A car. Number 21. Subaru Impreza 1995. Well, if you are a sim racer, or even a rally fan, or just like motor racing, well, Colin McRae was one of the most influential drivers in the world of rally ever. Not just because of his incredible taking no prisoners driving style, but also he had a massive impact on sim racing. Back in time, maybe many years before even the word sim racing appeared, Colin McRae rally games introduced the sport to thousands and thousands of new fans who discovered it through gaming. Although it wasn't my first, because I think Mobile One Rally Championship was my first rally game. Still, I think Colin McRae rallies were the most important, that I became the rally fan as I am now. So this Subaru was Colin's championship winning car in 1995. Historically, it's one of the most important cars in this game, because DiRT Rally 2.0 was developed by Codemasters, the same company that created Colin McRae Rally 1 around 1999, maybe 98, I'm not sure. So the amazing DiRT Rally 2.0 DLC called Flat Out Pack Colin McRae is an awesome tribute to him. So this car is amazing. It handles like a dream. Maybe it's a little bit on the heavy side, so there are a couple of more snappy cars in the Group A, but it's very good, very stable. Number 20. Subaru Impreza 2001. Well, in this test, this car seemed to be the slowest 2000cc WRC car. This one was Richard Burns' championship-winning Subaru in 2001. Being the slowest in the list is sort of shocking to me. You know, before I started to enter hardcore club championships around 2021, I tested the most frequently used classes there. And this Subaru proved to be the most stable, the most predictable, and the most neutral behaving car among all of them. So with the goal of reaching the finish line in the mind, I used this car almost all the time in its class, and as it happened, I could win 3 club championships with it. On the paper, I used it for thousands of kilometers, so this car fits like a glove. Well, when I checked this timetable, I was going, what? I did verification a couple of times and there was no mistake. I ran the slowest time in its class with my most favorite and most used car. Wow. Okay, when I start to process all the data on the gravel and snow stages, maybe it will be different, but you know, this result is sort of amazing and not in a good way, if you know what I mean. 19. Subaru Impreza S4 Rally. Well, if you ask me, it must be the most beautiful rally car ever built. If there was a golden ratio of rally car proportions, well, I think it cannot be any better than this. Okay, it's subjective, like women, you like this, I like that. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, it's quite remarkable that in DiRT 2.0, this car felt very heavy to me. Regardless, I could beat the time of my most favorite car in the same class. And despite the fact that I know these are not record times, I pushed as hard as I could. Number 18. Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4. As far as I can remember, it was Tommy Mackinnon's ride around 1999. It's a very impressive run from a Group A car. It's in the company of more advanced cars, so it's quite remarkable. Like the Subarus before, it's a 4-door sedan with a long wheelbase, so it's very stable for high speeds. To me, it also feels lighter than the Subaru S4. However, for me, it seemed to be a tiny bit lazy when it came to slow turns. But for this test, I used the default setup, and tweaking makes a drastic difference. 17. Subaru Impreza 2008. Well, it's sort of strange to see these three Imprezas being so close to each other, considering stage times. And even being less than a second from each other, seeing this one on the top, well, it's strange. In the way, it feels like a sort of cross between the two older Imprezas. It doesn't feel as heavy as the S4, but less powerful, and feels to pack more punch than the 2001 Impreza, but it's less agile when cornering. Still, in this test, it seemed to be faster than both of them. Interesting. 16. Peugeot 206 Rally. Mr. Nervous. This car feels super light and very agile. Maybe too much so, because it's very easy to lose it. But if you learn how to control, well, you can make a much bigger difference of time than me. Marcus Granholm could win 2 WRC championships with this car in the year 2000 and 2002. For a while, I think it was the, and the stone came and up in the ass of Timo car, but it wasn't. It was a different Peugeot. Number 15. Peugeot 205 T16 Evo 2. Mr. Turboleg. So, if this car was anything like that in the real life, then I have no idea how could they keep it at bay, as it won the World Championship twice during the most extreme times of rallying of Group B, 1985 and 1986, driven by the great Joachim Konen. It must be the fastest Group B car in this game, period. Still, I wasn't able to drive it to its full potential, so to say. For me, it was way too unstable, but for a different reason than the previous Peugeot. Despite it has a short wheelbase as well, still the suspension felt to be much more predictable to me. Really like a go-kart. But the engine, man, up until some 5000-ish RPM, nothing happens. It feels much like a 100-ish horsepower car. And around 5001 RPM, the turbo starts to kick in, and literally kick in, like an afterburner or a rocket or something. So when it comes to a turbocharge, I think it's the most radical car in this game. It's like nothing, wow, too much. Anyway, it's very important to... If you enter the corner, do not spin the turbo too much, because tires will pop. To steer the wheel gently, because we slide and up in the air. Tapo to tamaki, fall apart a card, as the famous saying tells you. Number 14. Citroën C3 R5. In my opinion, compared to the Subaru Impreza S4, it's just like the opposite. I don't know what the politically correct word for that. Maybe disadvantageous appearance. Well, I'm not really a fan of this car. Anyway, it's the first R5 class car on the timetable. I was surprised when I checked it because I believed it was much slower. Before I've never compared the times of different classes. So despite the fact that the engine of these cars, R5s, are much less powerful, still the advanced suspension and brake systems, well, it makes quite a difference. It's stunning of how much better the traction of an R5 car is than of a Group B. So, it is the slowest R5. Stunning. 13. Audi Sport Quattro S1 E2. I don't know about you, but for me, considering looks and sound, this is the most iconic Group B rally car. Audi could snatch 2 World Championship titles with the predecessor of this car that changed the rallying forever by introducing four-wheel drive. So it's a more agile, shorter wheelbase, more snappy, more capable rally car. That was better, still it was not enough to win a championship. Partly because the absolutely amazing Peugeot 205 and partly because of some bad luck. In this game, it's one of the best cars, I think. It's rather on the heavy side, but because the engine doesn't work like an afterburner while delivering more than 500 brake horsepower, the handling remains stable even if you push it to the max, as you should. So this car is amazing. One of the most enjoyable cars in this game. Number 12. Ford Focus RS Rally 2001. Well, most iconic cars in this game became famous because of winning a championship, but this one is famous for losing championships. It was a decent car, just not the most reliable on the field, at least around the beginning. But around 2001 it really started to catch up. Then Colin McRae, one of the greatest rally drivers of all time, had his sort of Zinedine Zidane kicks the ass of Materazzi moment when he flipped the car and lost the championship in the middle of the last round. So Richard Burns, reaching the finishing line third, could win by 2 points for Subaru. Surely not the happiest day in Ford Motorsports history. But anyway, this car in this game is all sort of amazing. I really like the balance. It's also very powerful, light, agile. It's my second favorite car in the 2000cc WRC class. After running the slowest time in its class with my favorite car, I was sure that this McRae Focus will be the first in the 2000cc WRC class. Well, it wasn't. Damn it. Come on, boys. Sorry. Springtime, it's crazy. Flowers and stuff. Anyway, number 11. Lancia Delta S4. I'm not surprised that it ended up to be the best Group B rally car in this list, because I used this car the most in this group. It's partly because of nostalgic reasons. As I've mentioned around the beginning that this car was on my wall when I was a kid. So watching this poster every day, for me it's one of the most beautiful race cars ever, even if it killed one of my most favorite rally drivers of all time, Henry Toivonen, and his co-driver Sergio Cresto. Although in the 1986 season the World Championship was in reach for Henry, still when he arrived to the Corsica Rally he had health issues. So maybe because flu, maybe because of a previous neck injury, he wasn't in the best shape. On top, Corsica Rally around the time was one of the hardest rallies in the calendar. Narrow stages, extreme heat, long distance, the most powerful cars in the history, and passengers' lives were in constant danger because of lack of safety devices, as no one witnessed the actual crash. Today it's still unknown what exactly happened, but the lack of hard-braking skid mark tells that Henry probably had a blackout. So the car ran off the road, fell into a ravine, flipped over and burned out. Passengers had no chance to escape. So this horrible accident marked not only the end of the life of Toivonen and Cresto, but the end of Group B as well. People still regard Group B era as the golden age of rallying. Well, as for me, a Finnish saying comes to my mind. Itku pitkasta I losta, meaning tears come after joy. So, but that's all about the history. In Dirt Rally 2.0, how does this car feel? It's a little bit on the nervous side. It feels like the Lancia O37 on steroids. It's oversteering like hell, so if you set it a little softer to increase grip and reduce this nervousness. With softer suspension, it's still as agile as the Peugeot 205 T16. And because the engine is both supercharged and turbocharged, you can get a very nice consistent pull from low RPMs. There's no turbo lag. The engine of the Audi Quattro feels a little bit more bombastic. Still, the Lancia Delta S4 is nearly there, with a very predictable acceleration and awesome turning and braking because it feels lighter than the Audi. I think if you can tame the massive turbo lag of the Peugeot 205, then it's faster probably, but for me, who can't, even it's a little bit nervous, still the Lancia Delta S4 feels to be the most balanced Group B rally car. For the end of its long section, well, it was the fastest Group B rally car in my tests, and it's only number 11, so there are 10 more cars faster. It's crazy to think about it. Number 10. Ford Fiesta R5 Mark II. So during my test, I tried to save the best for last, and I really wanted to see the difference between Group B and the modern-day rally car that's represented as R5 in this game. So considering stage times, as far as it seems, R5 starts where Group B ends, and there's quite a substantial difference in traction. It feels like when I sold my 1989 Peugeot 405 and got a brand new Toyota Yaris with half the size, half the engine, half everything. Returning home from the saloon was a sort of shocking and revealing experience. Like, wow, it has brakes. Wow, it turns like crazy. Wow, a bump doesn't make me feel my kidney stones. And so on and so forth. So compared to Group B rally car, even if R5 cars are much less powerful, still the traction is so ridiculously better than Group B that R5 cars dominate the top 10. I didn't suspect that. I believed that the Lancia Delta S4 will be the winner, but it's only number 11. Number 9. Ford Focus RS Rally 2007. I'm surprised to see this car here. I used the older Ford Focus all the time, but this one just a couple of times. Compared to the old McRae Focus, I must admit that this new one is more predictable, not as dancey as the 2001 edition. Feels a little bit like a track racing car. You know, straight lines are always faster. But if you like drifting as much as I do, well, you will prefer the old one. Number 8. Ford Fiesta R5 Mark I. Well, too much difference I couldn't spot between this one and the new one, and my times reflect that. Much like Class R2, R5 is quite an even field. There is no drastic difference between cars, in my opinion. The common thing is that they are the fastest cars in DiRT Rally 2.0. All of them have amazing response, incredible traction. The main difference is maybe that some of them feel a little bit heavier than the other, but I think it doesn't make a big difference. Number 7. Peugeot 208 T16 R5. I could repeat, it feels all the same as other R5 cars. It's quite realistic anyway because regulations keep these cars very close. So apart from visual design of the original cars, well, they are supposed to handle nearly the same. The name of this Peugeot is a reference to the old championship-winning Group B rally car. It's a very nice one. If only the real-life Peugeot cars were reliable. I know it by experience. Many years ago, inspired by a rally and hill climb, I was a fan of this brand. A Peugeot is fun to drive, I admit. I also admit that they are completely unreliable. All of them I had. Number 6. Volkswagen Polo GTI R5. For some reason I don't know, well, I know because of Sébastien Ogier, multiple WRC champion, using this car a lot, so I believed this Volkswagen will top the chart. Well, it didn't. In the top 10, the difference is just marginal, so this Polo is not more or less competitive than the rest. At least I couldn't spot a drastic difference between R5 cars. Mind that I used the default setup to keep an even playfield. So maybe if you start to tweak the cars more, the differences are more obvious. I don't know. The only thing I'm sure about is that R5 cars are quicker than the rest in this game, as the timetable shows. Number 5. Škoda Fabia Rally. So, as this Czechish brand is a part of the massive Volkswagen group, I guess basically Škodas are kit cars from the same manufacturer with a slightly different look, targeting different consumers. There's a saying around my place that if you have a bag of Volkswagen components, using the right tools you can build an Audi, a Cupra, Lamborghini, MAN truck, Porsche, Scania, Seat, Škoda, Volkswagen of course, or maybe a Ducati bike or a Bugatti Veyron as well. So this particular rally car that's sort of on the ugly side, in my opinion, has an amazing handling. Despite the fact that in the reality it didn't perform too well, in this game it's almost a class first. But there is something else that's 25-ish milliseconds faster in my test. Number 4. Citroën C4 Rally. In the reality it was Sebastian Loeb's multiple championship winning car, and even if I used the more go-kart-like Subaru Impreza all the time, I suspected nothing less from the Citroën C4 than being the best in the class. Compared to the Subaru Impreza of my choice, it's almost as responsive, but it has a better engine. So 2000cc WRC category has quite a nice diversity. By that mean, this one, Group A and Group B are the essence of this game, I think. Number 3. Škoda Fabia R5. As the behavior of cars in this class are somewhat identical, the difference why I like this car is not because of handling, traction and the like. The reason why I tend to run a little bit faster times is actually the dashboard layout. There's nothing that you don't need. A massive gear counter, limiter lamp, and that's it. No unnecessary information, no distraction, only driving and you. Less is always more. Number 2. Lancia Delta HF Integrale. The fact that I could run the second fastest time with this car is a sort of face-melting. It was the same in the reality as well, as Lancia Delta Integrale HF dominated the scene for 5 consecutive years, right after Group B era. So despite the fact that a very serious leash was put on this beast to make it safer, and Group A introduced a lot of safety regulations, still the evolution of traction was incredible. So the beast didn't disappear, it just became smarter. So on the stage, a Group A rally car is at least as quick as a Group B rally car, but it's safer and more stable. Back to this actual car in the sim. For Group A races I used this car only, in the club championships. The handling is incredible. The main difference between this one and an R5 is that this Lancia likes to dance more, so you can run pretty quick times while power drifting the hell out of it. If you need a car that's very controllable, still going sideways all the time, then this is for you. In my opinion, in DiRT Rally 2.0, this is the best old-school 4-wheel drive car. And finally, number 1, Mitsubishi Space Star R5. Well, I suspected that I will run a good time with it, but topping the chart, no, it's not something I suspected. I know this car quite much because this is the one I used during my Club Championship R5 races. There was two reasons behind my choice. Thing 1, Mitsubishi is my most favorite car manufacturer. In the real life, their 2004-ish Mitsubishi Colt line proven to be so reliable, practical and fun to drive that I actually have 2 of them, a 1.3 base model and a 1.5-liter turbocharged CZT. So that's reason 1. Reason 2, as far as I could observe, this car wasn't very popular. When it came to R5 races, then everyone seemed to use everything else but this one. It was a sort of sleeper, no one suspected anything from a Mitsubishi Space Star, the super boring import compact. But when I raised it, this car always delivered. So around the end of the day I could snatch 3 club championship titles with the Space Star in the car roster. So I have very nice memories considering this Cyber Wasp livery. So that concludes my little test of all Dirt Rally 2.0 cars, minus the Rallycross ones. For me, it's been a hell of a ride, even considering the test itself and post-production as well. But it was fun, I enjoyed it. I tried to add some background about these cars, handling, some sort of reviews, some historical data, and a couple of other stuff. So maybe it wasn't such a dry bunch of statistical data as it is. So if you're still watching this and reached the end of the video, maybe you're a sim racer yourself as well, or considering it. Well, if you haven't, just do it, okay? Start yesterday, because even for someone like me, starting the whole thing after my age of 45. So I'm not quick at all, but I had great moments and ample of fun. Sometime I will talk about sim gear, but you know what, for sim racing you don't even have to own a force feedback wheel. Even using a keyboard or a gamepad you can run competitive times, and when it comes to rally sims, there's such a big number of good ones. If you want to go hardcore considering physics, there is Richard Burns Rally from the old times or BeamMG Drive. If you prefer a less unforgiving experience, then you have a wide range of games you can choose from. Dirt Rally Series, WRC, or a brand new EA Sports WRC, and so on. They are all great. So if you are interested in it, just start it. It's fun. NP out. See you somewhere in time.